Hey there, guys, and welcome back to the Travis and Damian Podcast, episode 60. We are available on anchor.fm/Travis Damian Podcast, along with Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. If you guys would like to ask us any questions, leave a voice message at the anchor link or in the YouTube comment section. Today, we're going to be talking about general gaming news, including E3 2021, then movie and entertainment news within Marvel Studios. Next, we're going to be talking about our recent activities, including Godzilla vs. Kong and a whole lot of anime. Afterwards, our thoughts on the Bloomberg article discussing Sony's Blockbuster mentality. Lastly, our thoughts on the Falcon and Winter Soldier episode 4 and 5. So first is that E3 2021 will be fully digital. It's going to be an online event, and PlayStation and EA will not be participating once again, but it will be backed by Nintendo, Xbox, Capcom, Ubisoft, Take-Two, WB, and Coach Media. I
don't know what Coach Media is, by the way.
But yeah, I think that Nintendo sort of backing the event is a good sign. I'm sure that they were going to do their own like little direct thing as usual. But the absence of Sony and EA is, I think sort of expected. I believe when Sony pulled out, it was right before the pandemic happened. Like I think it was like 2019 before everything went to shit. So
Yeah.
It's still like sort of new and sort of weird to not see Sony at E3 yet, just because we haven't had the event in person for the last 2 years now. But yeah, I am excited to see what E3 21 has to offer, just because it is a digital event, and there were rumors about paywalls and all of this other stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it being digital makes sense because the COVID, while it's like waning at this point as more people are getting vaccinations, is still like a big threat. I think I talked about this last time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's smart that E3 is just going to full digital route, and hopefully they figure out how to do it in like a good way. I mean, I just suspect it's just gonna be like all like directs, I guess. So it's gonna be like, oh, here's like the Xbox press conference, but it's basically like a direct, basically. Maybe they try and make it a little more fancy, like here's the E3 flair or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's really cool that Nintendo's backing it as well. Nintendo is never really a part of E3 anymore, but they usually are kinda, because their directs are still like, yeah, it's kind of a part of E3, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of cool to see them like back it. Obviously, they probably still are gonna do their own like directs like afterward, but it's just cool to see that Nintendo kind of values E3 as like a thing still, and I do too. I do like E3. I think it's a very convenient place to get all your big gaming news. Everyone gets all hyped for those like 3-4 days. It's a good time, and PlayStation still being kind of like annoying about it. It's really like again they pulled out like you said 2019, and I don't know if they'll come back, honestly. Like I think PlayStation is thinking they're like too good for everyone else. As we'll talk about later, that's another. I was about to bring it up, but no, we'll talk about PlayStation and Sony later. And EA kind of been doing their own things as well. Like they weren't a part of E3 for the past few years. They're doing like their own EA Play thing, where they would like stand outside and like play like here's Star Wars, I guess. So yeah, all the big players are basically here. You gotta remember that Bethesda is part of Xbox now, so they're not gonna be their own thing anymore, which is kind of weird. But yeah, it is cool to see, Nintendo, Capcom, even Ubisoft, Take-Two and stuff. So yeah, hopefully it'll be a good E3, or maybe it'll be disappointing. That's just how E3s go. But I'm excited to see how it turns out.
Yeah. My only hope for E3 is that, I don't know why this hasn't been like a thing sooner, is that like, since it is all digital, like, Xbox and Nintendo, y'all could like drop some demos and, E3 demos sort of things. Cause I remember back when I would get the Xbox 360, and like the idea of like downloading free demos was like always cool. But nowadays that's sort of like a retired idea.
Right.
But I feel like with E3, like people would fly out in person and actually like play these games. It would be very cool to see some of these studios sort of give us like a free demo exclusive for like the weekend or even like a month for you to download and sort of try out. Maybe even have it, limited for like however many plays to like not sort of like expose the game too much. Cause I know 3DS demos would definitely do that, where it would be like, you could only play this demo for like 20 times or whatever. Maybe they could do something similar if that is a route that some of these companies and publishers want to do, because I think that would be like a really cool aspect of this year's E3 in particular, and maybe even continue it onward, because the idea of demos, like I said, is sort of dead in the water.
Yeah. Well, there was actually a good case for people not doing demos with Balan's Wonderworld, where that
Mm-hmm.
game released its demo. And everyone was like, "Yo, this game is garbage," and I think they're pulling the demo now because like shit, everyone knows the game is bad now. But I agree. I agree that more people should do demos, and this is actually something I always wanted, even as like as like a kid, where I'm watching E3, I'm like, oh, that would be cool if they released the E3 demo, like when the event is happening or something. I
Mm-hmm.
still think that would be a really cool idea, and I agree that it makes sense this year because there's not even going to be a physical venue to go to. So it'd be cool if we could just like maybe just even just for that few days we could download the game and play whatever E3 build it is. Maybe they're afraid of data mining and like people
Mm-hmm.
just taking it and stuff. That's probably why they don't do it. Also because probably the game is like really unstable and stuff. Because these games are always like years and years in the future until they come out. But I agree with you. That would be super cool, and I think that would be a cool way to get people really excited about E3 again. Since I think they need to really spice it up and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's a really cool idea.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so on to more news. We got Sonic Colors Remastered leaked by a German dubbing studio. So yeah, so apparently this was leaked, rumored. We're not like sure right now, but a person on Twitter just found out that yeah, German's dubbing studio is like has a listing for like Sonic Colors Remastered. Um, Again, we don't know if this is real or whatever. It could be. And apparently it got like removed the page from its
Yeah.
website. So yeah, we don't know if this confirms or denies it, but I guess the idea of a Sonic Colors remaster is a pretty exciting one to think about since the game is a game 10 years old at this point, or is it over
Yeah.
10 years old?
It's over
I
10
think
years
so.
old.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my
Because me and
god.
you were still kids when this game came out, and I'm sure you might remember yourself going into like GameStop or whatever
I
and
I
buying
remember
this
getting it
game.
in like Best Buy and getting it.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But I think Sonic Colors could go for a good remaster. I mean, I think the game obviously doesn't look as good as Unleashed because it was on Wii only.
Hmm.
But it also means that a lot of people probably haven't even played it because it was only on Wii and like that's it. So it'd be cool to see it get remastered, HD. I don't know what else they could do. Maybe add some online for the multiplayer. I know the multiplayer wasn't that great. It was like the co-op missions or something. But I think that'd be a cool little addition. I think just being able to play the game again on modern hardware would be a really nice like treat because Sonic Colors is obviously one of the better 3D Sonic games. I would love to see Unleash also get a remaster. Because I know Unleash, Werehog and stuff, but I still really do like Unleash, and I think having all the good boost games be on like modern systems would be really neat. So
Yeah, definitely the idea of remasters and, especially games like this where it was exclusively on the Wii, but like Sega just put it on the Wii because why not? Like Nintendo didn't like publish this game or anything like that, so like they do have the freedom to put it on modern hardware and stuff like that. So yeah, this is definitely one of the boost formula Sonic games that a lot of people really like. But it's unfortunate that it was exclusive on the Wii, so I'm sure that there's a lot of people that haven't played it or they played it through like a emulation or whatever. So I think that if they had to remaster like one of the boost formula games, this is definitely the safest one to do it.
hmm
Me and Damien both have I guess, soft spot for Unleash. Say what you will about the Werehog and whatever, but I think that the daytime stages were good, and I even had some fun to a certain extent playing the Werehog stuff. Nowadays, maybe not so much, but definitely when I was younger, I had a lot of fun doing all of that. But with Sonic Colors, I think that, like I said, definitely the safest boost formula game to remake. You don't really have to do anything with Generations because that is
Yeah.
on PC.
hmm
Definitely putting it on like I guess like PS4, PS5 hardware wouldn't be that bad, but because it is already on PC, I think that there's not a huge demand for that title in particular. But Sonic Colors, it has only been on the Wii and DS, so a remaster of this one is definitely exciting news to hear. Not exactly sure if that's actually going to happen, but we're just gonna have to wait and see.
hmm
All right, so next piece of news, we got a couple of trailers for the Marvel Studios stuff. So first up is the Black Widow trailer. Her past or whatever, and sort of like highlighting her moments within the MCU. And it is going to come to Disney Plus Premier Access on July 9th, and I'm sure that's the reason why they dropped this trailer to sort of, I guess, solidify that this is gonna come out, guys. This is coming out.
Yeah, for real this time.
But Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna watch it either way. I'm probably gonna
Yeah.
pay the premiere access. I know that, but by the time this movie comes out, I will be like fully vaccinated. But even then, I don't want to risk it or anything. So if I could just pay $30, watch it from home, and sort of see the movie within the comfort of my own home, I'll do it. Obviously, the theater experience is pretty much irreplaceable in my eyes. But I think that with how things are still, I don't think that it is that bad, especially since this movie, they've been sitting on this for like probably a year now. So,
Yeah, I agree. Like, I just want to watch it at this point. I actually really like this trailer too, because I think that's Taskmaster they showed. I forgot if he was
yes.
the yeah, he's like the main villain. He looks cool. I love that like that Avengers theme they were using throughout the trailer. That was really good as well. And I still think it's really awkward how this movie's coming out like after Endgame and stuff. Like, it's supposed to be a thing about Black Widow's past, I guess, and like we're learning about it after things happen in Endgame, and it just feels a little weird. But it's still cool to learn more about Black Widow. Maybe they'll do something like they might have more stuff to do with Black Widow after this movie comes out. Because I don't think they're just gonna end it like that. I mean, I kind of wish they did. I don't know. It's just really awkward how this movie is coming out in general, especially since it was supposed to come out so much sooner. But just the general delays the movie had, plus COVID, really stopped this movie from ever coming out. But yeah, I'm liking for what I've seen. I always like it when the MCU goes for more like spy action stuff. So I'm pretty down with it. And yeah, I mean, not really too much else to say about it. I mean, what else do you have anything else to say about it?
No, just, I think that this, like you said, this is probably the best trailer that they've released so far, whether it's because they showed more of the past movies or like showed more of like what this movie's going to dive into, us actually seeing like her past experience with like everything that she's gone through. But yeah, definitely, excited to see this finally sort of thing,
And then the next thing to show was a trailer for Loki, so we get to know more about it. It looks like he's like with like weird reality police or something, like, and he has to like go through different like I guess realities and stuff and like fix like what's going on. So that seems really interesting, mostly because he was like using like the what's the thing called, the Tesseract? He was using that to like because this is the Loki from Avengers 1 that escaped during Endgame, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
That sounded kind of confusing, but yes, this is the Loki from Endgame that escaped.
Yeah. So it seems like a pretty interesting thing they're doing here. A lot of interesting visuals. It looks like it's gonna be a little more comedic too. Like there's some good funny moments in here. And it's coming out June 11th as well. So like I think Disney has been really killing it with the shows lately. I really liked obviously Mandalorian. I know that's not MCU, but Mandalorian was really good. WandaVision was great, and I think Winter Soldier is like even better. I'm sorry, Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yes.
So Loki looks like hopefully it was able to keep up the same like pace, because it looks like it will. It looks very interesting. Again, a lot of cool visuals. Loki's always a great character to follow around. I'm really digging it, and I'm pretty sure I'll like it too, because again, all their shows have been killing it right now. So.
Yeah, I think that before this trailer came out, I had no idea what the hell they were gonna do with a sort of Loki series. But now that we have like an actual like idea of sort of like I guess a similar setup to I guess like what the new Suicide Squad is sort of doing. It's like, well, you're a bad guy, but like you're gonna do some good stuff for us because you have to. So I am interested to see what sort of antics Loki gets into, especially since Tom Hiddleston, I believe that's his name. Hopefully I said that right. But he's a fantastic actor. Every single time he is in the role of Loki, he really, really does kill it. And it looks like that they had a lot of fun making the show. So yeah, I'm excited to see exactly how it all pans out, because like you said, so far, everything that Disney Plus has been making with original content has been really, really good. So
yeah, I've been enjoying like all of it so far. So hopefully they could keep up that pace.
All right, so next bit of news is Netflix purchases 2 Knives Out sequels for $450 million to make it its next big franchise. So, yeah, if you guys don't know what Knives Out is, I believe it is on Netflix right now. So if you haven't watched it, watch it, because it is a really good movie. You don't really need to know anything about it. All you need to know is that it's really good and Daniel Craig's in it. But they pretty much bought out, I guess, the next sequels for the movie to, I'm going to assume, premiere on Netflix. It would be very interesting to see if Netflix were to also release this theatrically, depending on where these movies fall, and sort of if it's, safe to go out into theaters and things like that. But I think that them spending this much money, they obviously have a lot of faith within the name Knives Out, and I'm excited to see what Rian Johnson has in store, because I'm one of those people that really liked his Star Wars movie that he made, episode, I believe it was goddamn 8 or something like that, episode 8, The Last Jedi.
Right.
So yeah, I'm excited to see what he does, because Knives Out 1 is a really, really good movie. Even when I rewatched it a couple of times, just seeing everything again and how it all plays out. So
It's actually funny because I still haven't watched Knives Out. But I knew it did really well, and I think, Netflix moving in to buy 2 sequels for it, says a lot. Like, they have a lot of confidence in the franchise now. If the sequels are gonna be any good, that remains to be seen.
yeah.
Because usually Netflix original movies aren't like great. Obviously there's some good ones, but I feel like for the most part they're usually like a lot lower budget and just not as good, unfortunately. So hopefully this could be something great. I know people really like the first movie, but I'm gonna be a little skeptical and say like Netflix might ruin it. Hopefully they don't, but you never know. Because I don't know, I feel like not everything has to be a franchise, right? Like, I don't know how this movie plays out, but does it like warrant to be a franchise? I don't know. Sometimes it's good just to have a good one-off original movie, because we used to get those all the time, like the 80s and 90s, right? Like obviously there were sequels, but for the most part they were like always like pumping out stuff and just like forgetting about it. Nowadays, usually everything has to be a part of some cinematic universe, even if it's like really rushed out. I mean, look at the DCU, right? Like the DCU is like a goddamn mess. I feel like the only ones that have been able to really do that well is like Marvel, because it didn't even want it to start like that. It just slowly evolved into it. But yeah, basically that's my long-winded way of saying, like, does it need to be a franchise? I don't know. Maybe it would have been better for them to like, I don't know, like probably get like the people involved with it and make it a new original thing, but I don't know. The name probably sells more than anything else, and that's probably what they care about at the end. So
Yeah, Rian Johnson is set to write and direct these sequels, so that is sort of promising. But I can definitely see your point of view when it comes to Netflix and sort of exclusive streaming movies in general, because most of the time, despite having the convenience of getting the buzz on social media with things like Bird Box, I believe that was like a huge Netflix movie just because of the cast that it had, and also the fact that it was on Netflix. So literally everyone could be part of the conversation if they wanted to. But that movie, in my opinion, wasn't exactly all that great. I think that there were definitely some flaws within it that just didn't exactly sit well with me in terms of like the premise, and like the concept of it was good, but I think the execution was a bit off. But yeah, definitely the notion that streaming exclusive movies aren't as good as the theatrical ones is definitely warranted. But I think Netflix might be trying to turn that around with something like Knives Out, and even with some of their other movies, like I believe Irishman or whatever. But that movie's like hella long, so I've not even watched that yet.
It's really long. Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. So we got more Netflix news. This is a pretty big one. This goes into Sony as well. Netflix and Sony break ground with a film licensing deal, replacing the Stars Pact, including first look at new direct-to-streaming titles. So basically, Netflix signed an 18-month exclusive window deal for Sony films. The official terms are unknown still, but Netflix won the bidding war for $1 billion over 4 years. That's a lot.
Yeah.
The titles will come to Netflix after their theatrical releases. The current titles right now are Mobius, Uncharted, Where the Crawdads Sing, and The Bullet Train. Netflix will get a first look deal for any direct-to-streaming titles as Sony figures out which films those will be. The deal only entails for 2022 films, so Venom 2 and Spider-Man 3 will not be a part of this, and future sequels will be coming to Netflix. So, like Into the Spider-Verse 2 and stuff. So after their theatrical run, also obviously. So, yeah, so obviously that's pretty big. I think Sony, like we were talking about before, Sony's been going pretty big with their films and stuff, because I actually think like Sony doesn't really do well outside of like gaming nowadays. Like obviously they still have like their TVs and stuff, but you don't really see them like anymore. And like their films and stuff, obviously like don't do as well either. Like compared to other people, obviously their gaming division kills it. PlayStation is like doing super well. But that's probably why they're adapting so many of their video game franchises into films now. Because like, hey, our video games do really well, and people really like those. So if we just adapt them to films, maybe that could reach a broader audience, and we can make more money. And obviously going with Netflix seems like a pretty smart idea to them as well, since they kind of need them, and Netflix has good accessibility, right? Because like almost everyone has Netflix, and it's like, hey, if we get more eyes on this, that would probably be a good deal here. So, and obviously Netflix just wins by having more content in their catalog. So,
Yeah.
right.
um,
So,
I think that this deal is very interesting just because, Netflix getting first look at Sony films in general, I think is
yeah,
very good for them because I'm sure that they saw the numbers for a movie like Into the Spider-Verse when it was on their service. It was like, wow, like, a lot of people love this movie. So they were probably like, well, let's try to, you know, get a deal with Sony and see what we can do about that. So, and I think the fact that Venom 2 and Spider-Man 3 aren't a part of this really puts the pressure on Sony to release those films this year. Because if they
yeah,
release them next year, they could possibly be a part of this Sony Netflix deal now, which they may or may not want just because of, Marvel and Disney and, maybe they could strike a deal with Disney Plus or something like that. There's obviously like a lot of legal logistics that I don't know about where it comes to the Spider-Man movies coming or like the Spider Universe movies in general coming to Disney Plus and sort of on how that works out. But I think that definitely puts a lot of pressure on them. And like you said, Sony, they aren't too successful within their movies. I feel like a lot of them outside of the Spider-Man movies, it's sort of hit or miss. But with a deal like this, obviously they are going to get a whole lot of money, $1 billion. That is insane. And because Netflix gets first look at these new titles, they could obviously like be like, like this one didn't do so well at the box office. All right, Sony, like you deal with it now. We're not going to take it for Netflix because, I'm not sure if they have to pay extra because, they obviously paid the $1 billion for 4 years. I'm sure that it would just be a matter of them saying yes or no to whichever titles that Sony brings up to them. But yeah, this is a very, very interesting deal. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people that probably think that Venom 2 and Spider-Man 3 are going to come to Netflix, but that is just not the case because this deal, I believe, is only for 2022 movies, like you said. So yeah, it is definitely going to be interesting, especially since the streaming war is really like getting into effect now because of Disney coming into this sort of mix now. So
yeah.
it's definitely going to be very, very interesting, like I said.
Yeah, mostly because I think Netflix was already losing ground in the streaming war.
Hmm.
What Disney was like pumping out so much good stuff, and Netflix has been really on the decline for a while, and them not having a lot of big hits recently. Like I think obviously because COVID and stuff, but having
Hmm.
not Stranger Things 4 come out is like pretty big because that's like their big show, and now they're like, oh, we don't really have a lot of things. Obviously they got Tiger King, and that was a good success for them, but like it's really inconsistent right now. So I think this deal is like seems like a pretty beneficial thing for both companies. So yeah, this is gonna be interesting to see what happens later on.
All right, so now let's get into our recent activities. Once again, I got a whole list, but most of these are just one episode for anime. So I'll let Damien go first.
Okay, so I just put Monster Hunter Rise and Final Fantasy 14 here because yeah, I was playing them. Not much else to say about Rise because I talked about it a lot. Besides, I'm finding more of the high-end monsters, and it's still a ton of fun. Everything I said in the last episode still applies here. Deeper I go in the game, it's still fantastic, really challenging, as you would expect as you move further into the game. It's good to see a lot of monsters that weren't in Monster Hunter World, since, World was, sort of had to redo a lot of the gameplay system, so they didn't have as many monsters. It's just cool to fight other things that aren't, like, more, like, dragon-looking. Like, there's a lot more, like, oh, you can fight, like, a bear and stuff, and, like, that's cool. So yeah, I've really been enjoying Monster Hunter Rise. Final Fantasy 14 just released a new patch on Tuesday. I hadn't had a chance too much to play it because I've been pretty busy with school and stuff because finals are coming up.
Yep.
But but yeah, I played the story patch. I beat all of it. Really good. I'm really excited to see where all this leads up to Endwalker, which comes out fall. So yeah, I'm very excited for that. I didn't play the new raid or diamond weapon yet. I'll make sure to play those before the next podcast to actually talk about it. So two things I actually really want to talk about are Binding of Isaac and Godzilla vs Kong. So I'm going to talk about Isaac first. So I didn't really want to spoil too much about Isaac last episode because it just came out.
Mm-hmm.
repentance, but now I don't care because like literally all the spoilers are everywhere and everyone knows now. So I'm just gonna spoil it. If you don't want to hear it, that's fine. You can skip to like Travis's section. But it really isn't that big. I think people that are playing Isaac at this point know everything about it. So the reason what makes this DLC so good that I just that I learned about like after the podcast last time was there's like 17 different alt characters. So there's 17 characters in the main game. Once you go through the true ending, you unlock the alternate characters of the game. So you get like 17 base characters and the 17 alternate characters, and they all have their own unlocks and special mechanics, which is literally it's like ginormous. Like that like doubles the length of the game, and it's crazy that like an indie company was able to do that. Like it just blows my mind. And all these alternate characters like play nothing like their original counterpart, and like they are so goddamn unique. Like it's actually crazy. Like Kane, right? Alternate Kane has a bag of crafting. He can't grab items normally. They would just turn into consumables, so things like coins and bombs and pills and stuff. You can use this bag of crafting to like nab this stuff, and I believe you have like 8 slots to make like a crafting thing. So you grab any assortment of items, and it just makes any item in the game, and you can just craft it. It's just such a unique mechanic with so many things going on. Like that could just be one character by itself, and I would have been happy. But there's like 16 more of those like special mechanics. Like I'll try to think of other ones. Like Isaac, alternate Isaac, only have 8 items ever. So usually the point of Isaac is to like grab a bunch of items. For him, it feels more like a deck builder where you have to like pick and choose which item you really need at a certain point and which item is like good enough to take up a slot in your inventory. It's just so unique, and like it just really changes how the game plays like in general. And the 2 new final bosses are super well done. The true final boss, Dogma and the Beast, are like probably the best Isaac final boss I have played, because all the other final bosses are okay. Like Hush and Delirium are like really bad, just because they have so much super armor and they take forever to kill, which kind of defeats the purpose of Isaac, where you kind of want to build a really godlike run and then just like demolish everything. I can understand a bit of boss armor because you don't want it like the final bosses to be giant pushovers, but I feel like Hush and Delirium were like a pretty big step backwards, and not a lot of people don't really like those bosses. But for Dogma and the Beast, like the true final bosses are just they focus more on it being a fun fight rather than it being just bullshit, and I really do appreciate that. All the patterns are not easy to dodge, but like challenging enough that you can still like die pretty easily. But they also don't have like a bajillion HP, so it just feels like a really fun fight. There's a lot of phases and stuff to them, and like it just doesn't feel like such a slog. I really did like it, and the final boss for the alternate path, Mother, is also a really fun fight. That one's a lot harder because it does have more super armor than the true final boss, but again, I feel like its patterns are fair enough. I feel like every time I take damage is not my fault, unlike Delirium, which is like bullshit most of the time. But yeah, I think they did such a good job with this DLC. The alternate floors are so fun. It's obviously a lot harder than the main path, but like there's so many unique mechanics and stuff that it makes it worth going through that extra challenge to unlock all those new items. So yeah, I just think they did such a great job with this game, and I easily put like 40 hours into the game, and I didn't even scratch the surface with like this DLC. It's actually like insane how much content there is, and I honestly just can't praise Edmund and stuff enough. Like that, this DLC is like blowing me away with how good it is. It really does feel like an Isaac 1.9, like he keeps saying, and I could definitely see why it took so long for this DLC to come out, since they announced it in 2018 and then it came out to like now. So I could definitely understand why the dev time went. So yeah, I'm super happy with it. And the last thing I've been doing is watching. Well, I watched Godzilla vs Kong. So people were complaining like. I'm hearing some like different things with it. I might need to go on a rant for a second. Because
Go on, bro.
People are always like, yo, why these Godzilla movies? The people suck. Like, I'm like, dude, have you ever watched a Godzilla movie? Like, the only time the human characters are actually good was in the original Godzilla and in Shin Godzilla. Like, those are the only times they actually are supposed to care about like the human politics. Rest of the time, you care about the stupid giant lizard fighting some other stupid like thing. You know what I mean? Like that's what you're here for, is giant kaiju fights. Like you don't come here for like good acting or like good anything else. Like you just like kind of get over that. It's like it's still like a cheesy B movie type thing. Just like this time has a huge budget instead of like people in rubber costumes. And I think this movie like really nailed that. This really felt like I was watching an old Toho Godzilla movie. Just the energy it like exuberates is like so good, dude. Like it's just like, here, you want to see Godzilla and Kong fight? Here you go. You can see them fight like 3 times, and like it's great. And it's also good because the director, I forgot what his name was. He was a fan of the original Godzilla vs Kong, but the original Godzilla vs Kong did not have like a definitive ending. It was kind of left up to your imagination, like, oh, who really won? He said he wanted to like actually make a defined winner, and he did, which was actually really interesting. Like, he actually like said like, yeah, this monster won. I'm not obviously not going to say who, but he said like, oh, this monster won. Like, this is the monster that like won the actual fight, which was really cool to see. Like, he didn't like wimp out and say like, oh, it's like, oh, up to your imagination, like in the original movie. Like, he's like, yeah, no, this monster won, which is really cool. But yeah, the fights were fantastic. I really enjoyed it. There's a really cool thing at the end that's really cool. I never thought I would see that in an American Godzilla movie because it sounds really stupid when you say it out loud. But when me seeing it, I was geeking out so much. I'm like, yes, they did it. Hell yeah. It's hard to talk about without not just spoiling it, so it won't. But yeah, if you're into Godzilla or even King Kong, you just want to see two monsters fight, then this is a fantastic movie. I really liked it. Again, you just gotta know what you're getting yourself into. You know, don't expect like Citizen Kane because you're not gonna get it. It's literally two CGI monsters fighting, and it's great. I thought the fights were super good. And you know, like who cares about the human stuff? You don't come here for that, and it don't take up a lot of time either. Like, most of the time, it does focus on the monsters, which is great. When you watch a movie like this, you want to be focusing on the monster fights and not on like the people. And the movie really doesn't focus on them that much, so I don't really know why people are complaining. But yeah, it's really good. I really enjoyed it. If you're into that stuff, then you would enjoy this movie.
Yeah, the director for Godzilla vs Kong, he actually directed the worldly acclaimed Netflix Death Note. Yeah,
That's hilarious. But he actually did pretty good with this one.
yeah. I mean, like when I saw Godzilla King of the Monsters in 2019, I mean, you know, I didn't expect much from the human characters. You know, I believe they gave like a backstory to like Millie Bobby Brown's character, but outside of that, I was like, you know, I just want to see Godzilla fuck shit up. So that's exactly what I got. So
Yeah.
but I will definitely watch that when classes are over. But
Yeah, it's good fun.
in the meantime, I've been watching too much anime for my own good.
I
So,
guess that.
first up, Wonder Egg Priority. Finally finished it because the episode was locked by Funimation Premium, and I was not going to pay for that. So I watched the final episode. It was definitely an interesting ending. I think that whenever I hear other people talk about this show, they have a hard time describing it. So I'm glad I'm not the only one. It's just a weird show. Like, you just have to watch the first episode to really see what it's about. The animation's good, the music's good. Like, really, like, the production value from Cloverworks was like out of the park for this one, I think. And this is like a anime original, so maybe that's why, because, you know, like, this was everything that they did. No one knew what was going to happen. But I really did like the story. I really like the characters, and yeah, it was a good overall good time. Horimiya, this is a anime that premiered last season. So if I had to, you know, put this in there, it would definitely be above The Promised Neverland Season 2. But just like The Promised Neverland Season 2, this one condenses the manga into 13 episodes. So the first half of the show is like really, really, really good. It focuses on Hori-san and Miyamura and how they two, or how them two sort of like get to know each other and sort of start to date. And that aspect of the show was really fun and really like cute to watch. I watched this on Hulu. It's not on Crunchyroll or anything like that. It's only on like the Funimation platforms or whatever. So I had to watch it on Hulu. So yeah, and it was really good for like the first half. And then the second half, they sort of like focus on like the other characters within their school, which was fine. But like, I can tell that like they were rushing to what the manga ended. And like the manga is like really, really long. Like, it's like 14, 15 volumes, and they only had like 13 episodes. But I don't think this needs a season 2 or even like a sort of like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood remake. I think that with how this anime played out, I think that it really did a good job, you know, showing you Hori-san and Miyamura's relationship. But on top of that, like, if you want to see them do like more stupid stuff, you could obviously read the manga. And the success of this anime has been noticed by me personally, just because I went on Write Stuff to like writestuffanime.com to see if I could get like any of the volumes of the manga, and literally all of them are sold out. And I'm like, wow,
Oh my God.
that is crazy. But it is really good. I think that if you want to watch a romance comedy slice of life sort of thing, this is definitely a good one. And it came out, like I said, just last season. So, and it's only 13 episodes, so I think that this one is not that bad. Next one I watched is called Tuski ga Kiri. I hope I said that right. The English translation is As the Moon So Beautiful. This one came out in 2017 from April to June. So I guess during like the spring season. But this one is about God damn it, Akame and Azumi, and like they're like third year middle schoolers, and they sort of start to get to know each other. They start dating. This one is not a comedy. This is a romance slice of life drama. So the drama that happens is obviously like middle school shit, where it's like, oh, like, is he gonna text me back? Like, he's not calling me. Or with like Japanese culture, when you go from middle school to high school, you need to apply to different high schools, and sort of like the way that in the US where you go from high school to college, like everyone else, you have to like apply to like these different schools. They have to do this in 8th grade, and that shit was stressful to watch. I was like, God damn, like they are in 8th grade and they already have to start to worry about this shit. Like, that is crazy. But yeah, it was just really cute and really wholesome. My only problem, like, honestly, I would give this shit a fucking 10 out of 10 because I honestly loved seeing Akame and Azumi sort of like interact and sort of talk to each other. It doesn't get a 10 out of 10 because the fucking CG, bro, they use CG to have like the crowds of like random students or like people, and it's so fucking distracting every single time it happens. Other than that, the show is beautifully animated. I like the music. I like the intro, the outro, like everything about the show I really like. Like, what's it called? Some people might not like it because it's just too awkward fucking middle schoolers just like trying to date. But like, it's so relatable to a certain extent where I'm like, I can kind of see like what this show is trying to show. But yeah, the ending was also like very beautiful. And like, I almost cried, but I didn't because I was like, okay, I gotta like control myself here. But yeah, Tuesday Got Carry is really, really, really good. It's only 12 episodes. If you could get past the CG, the fucking terrible CG, I think that you'll have a really good time with this, especially if you like romance anime.
Wait, where do you CG at?
Yeah, they use CG for the crowds of like people, just like random people, and I'm like, why did they do that? I don't know. I guess to like crunch time or whatever, but like it's super distracting, and I always laugh at it because it just looks so bad. But I really, really like this romance drama because I didn't expect it to be, I guess, as dramatic as it was, but there's multiple love triangles going on and shit like that. So next one, Totodora. This one is very, I guess, infamous or famous within the sort of like romance genre. This one came out in like 2008, like late 2008. So this one's kind of old, but you got like these high schoolers. You got Ryuji and what's her name? Taiga. And them two, they live next to each other. Taiga's a fucking tsundere. So like straight up, she's beating the shit out of fucking Raiju, but like Raiju's still like helping her because of like her living situation. I'm only 10 episodes in, so I haven't finished it. But I can see why a lot of people like it. I'm sort of okay with it right now. I am enjoying myself when I am watching it. It's just, fucking goddamn weird drama and, stuff happening. So, but yeah, now I'm going to talk about a lot of the current shows going on right now. So first up, My Hero Season 5. I think next week's episode is when stuff's really going to be fun because right now they've just been sort of like setting stuff up. But I have been reading the manga, so I do know what happens. So I'm not like too concerned about following the anime. But so far so good with the anime. I have like no real complaints because I think that what the show is going to turn into once we get into the further seasons is going to be very interesting. And I wonder how the sort of anime watchers only are going to react to it. Tokyo Revengers. This one was the anime that I talked about where like this guy's only girlfriend from like middle school like got murdered, and then like he like goes back in time and like some weird shit happens. The first episode, very interesting. I mean, it doesn't really explain a lot of stuff well, so I am going to reserve my opinion of it right now. But when Kofi was watching it with me, he was like, I don't know what the fuck just happened, but stuff's happening. The main character is sort of a dumbass because he doesn't remember stuff that happened in middle school, but like he's still sort of young, like he's I guess like fresh out of high school or some shit, but he doesn't remember stuff from middle school, which is kind of crazy because when he goes back like in time, he's like, wait, this happens next. And then I'm like, wait, you forgot what happens? Especially within the context of what actually happens. I'm like, how do you forget this, dude? Like, but Yeah, that's gonna be interesting because there's no like episode limit on this because the manga's still going, and I'm not sure where they're gonna end this show between the I guess within the anime season. But next one is Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro. As you guys know, I love fucking teasing Master Tagaki-san, so I'm like, I gotta watch this show. And this one is fucking weird. Like bro, like she goes fucking in on teasing this guy, man. Like she straight up calls him a virgin. Bro, like she does not hold back when it comes to like fucking with him. And I guess some people have a problem with that, where like they would watch it and like, bro, she's just being a fucking asshole. But I'm like, it's a fucking anime. I'm sure that like there's a reason why she's doing it. It's only one episode, so like we don't know exactly what her full intentions are. But you know, just seeing him like sort of like be flustered because he is like a fucking super nerd. Like the reason why he meets up with her is because he always goes to the library to like do homework and like be by himself, but she's there with like her friends, and you know she sort of like starts messing with them and whatever. But I think once we get more episodes of this anime, I think that people might be a little more comfortable with Miss Nagatoro because she is kind of a fucking asshole. I am gonna be honest, but I think that we'll see where her motives are further in. I did buy the manga. It hasn't come in yet, but I know that a lot of people who have read the manga, they really do like it. They use the word sus in the anime, which was not in the manga apparently. So that shit sort of threw me off when I was watching. I was like, she said sus. What the hell? But yeah, you know, it's another fucking romance comedy, you know, slice of life where the girl teases the guy or whatever. All right, this one, FBI, don't arrest me. After being rejected, I shaved and took in a high school runaway. So this one has 2 episodes, and this one is fucking weird because like the title suggests, this guy takes in this fucking high schooler who's like a runaway, and she doesn't have like a real concept of like the real world. So like whenever the main guy does something nice, she wants to like repay him with like sex and shit. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? So he's obviously like, whoa, like you gotta like raise your standards or whatever. And like, he has like this crush on like his boss, and like, that's weird. It's definitely a very interesting dynamic because if I was in this fucking situation, I would not want her in my house because that shit just looks sus, where like this guy's 26 and he has this fucking high school runaway. Like it does not look good on paper for him, especially since in the first episode, he looks up like an article where like this guy got arrested for like taking in a high schooler just like him. And like, I guess he just doesn't care, or like he's too nice, but he's not actually that nice. It's weird. But yeah, I am definitely sort of keeping my eye on this one because it is so weird, and I'm sort of like intrigued in terms of what's going to happen within the 13 episodes that this anime is adapting from the light novel. So yeah, it is, just by the title of it, I'm sure that a lot of people were like, what the hell is going to happen? But who the hell knows? Last anime I got here is a rom-com where the childhood friend won't lose. I only watched the first episode because that's the only one that's out. And this one is also kind of weird because the childhood friend is very adamant about trying to get with this dude, but this dude has other eyes on another girl. So wonder how that's going to play out or whatever. But right now it has a 68% average on fucking Annulus, which is kind of weird because it's only one episode, guys. But who the hell knows? But yeah, and then Teasing Master Tagaki-san is the manga that I've been reading on and off. It's sort of like a quick read, but I've sort of stopped reading manga just because I gotta focus on these fucking finals. So, yeah. But anyways, that's my entire fucking rant on the anime that I've been watching. It's a whole lot. So now let's talk about the Bloomberg article in Sony's obsession with blockbusters and their sort of mentality going into the PlayStation 5. So I made a separate video on this, so I'm going to reiterate some of the stuff that I discussed in that video, but if you guys want to check it out, it's obviously available on my YouTube channel. So I'm just going to break the story down just like I did within that video. A new development unit within Sony started remaking The Last of Us 1 for the PlayStation 5. Originally, they wanted to remake Uncharted 1, but that would be far too expensive and require a ton of work. Sony never fully acknowledged the team's existence or even gave them proper funding for the project. Not even a name was given to them. Sony then moved ownership of this project to Naughty Dog, ditching the small unit behind. After Sony canned their Japanese studio's offices, their mentality are now on blockbuster video games for the PlayStation 5 rather than creating new titles in the evolving landscape of gaming. Days Gone devs Bend Studios tried to pitch a sequel to Sony but failed due to the first game's lengthy development and mixed reception. Instead, the team was split into two to help Naughty Dog with a multiplayer game while the other group was assigned to create a new Uncharted game under the supervision of Naughty Dog. Unhappy with this arrangement, some staff left, including top leaders. Now the studio is off of the Uncharted project and they are now working on a brand new franchise project. And taking a quote from the article directly, Sony's focus on exclusive blockbusters has come at the expense of niche teams and studios within the PlayStation organization, leading to high turnover and less choices for players. Last week, Sony reorganized the development offices in Japan, resulting in mass departures of people who worked on less well-known but acclaimed titles such as Gravity Rush and Everybody's Golf. The company has informed developers that it no longer wants to produce smaller games that are only successful in Japan, Bloomberg has reported. So, when this sort of news came out, a lot of the outlets were extremely hyper-focused on No Days Gone 2 and The Last of Us 1 remake for the PS5. And because of that, a lot of people on Twitter were also hyper-focused on that news as well, where it was like, oh, why does a Last of Us remake need to happen? Days Gone 2 is not happening. I mean, I kind of expected that, but, I know that there's some people that really did enjoy that game. But definitely after I made my video, people really did actually focus on the main idea of this article, which is Sony's mentality of blockbuster games. So I just want to see Damian's opinion on this because this is obviously like a huge thing, especially since Sony is killing it within the console war right now. But I think them shifting their focus is a bit interesting.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing with this. Like, I think Sony's always been pretty obsessed with like really big blockbuster games. Like, they've always like really aimed for that. And obviously that could lead to a lot of developers not really being happy with like such a high bar of success because Sony's IPs always have to reach that level, right? Like I think Naughty Dog really set the bar high with like even Crash Bandicoot back then, and then Jack, and then Uncharted, and then obviously Last of Us. And I feel like Sony like wants every company to sort of reach that same height, and usually they do. Guerrilla Games with Horizon, a Sonic with Spider-Man. Sucker Punch with Ghost of Tsushima, Santa Monica with the new God of War. Usually they've been able to keep up, but like it's hard to like always expect such great things all the time, and you don't really have a break. I mean, like with the Days Gone's devs, obviously they were really only given like one shot, and the game did okay. Like it did okay review wise, and it did okay sales wise, but that wasn't really good enough for Sony. So they're just straight up like, okay, you just like won't be able to make a sequel, and you could just do something else instead. Which I mean, it makes sense, but I could see it why people would have like an issue with it, developers wise, and it could lead to like some burnout or some like sort of bad blood between developers and Sony. Especially with Naughty Dog, like with the whole like, oh, make Last of Us 1 remake and stuff. Like, is that really necessary? Not really. It seems like they're more chasing the bag there with like, oh, the Last of Us show is gonna come out. We could just remake this for some easy money. Maybe like change the models a bit so that like the actors in the show, I don't know if that's really what they're planning or anything, but it's definitely like something that we should probably worry about and discourage because it could lead to like crunch and like to developers like wanting to meet all these high expectations, but they just aren't able to because Sony has like such a pretty big like grasp with the whole like blockbuster games. Like their games have to be the best thing on there, which again it makes sense, but you don't really hear Nintendo like having like people like bust like I mean obviously they're gonna bust their balls off making these games, but they're not like this where it's like Sony is such like an oppressive force about it. Nintendo is more like they want to do it. Obviously I'm not saying there's no problems in Nintendo, but you don't really hear about it now, don't you? in Sony's case, you hear it a lot more. Especially when Last of Us 2 came out, a lot of developers left because the working conditions were so bad. And at that point, do you blame Naughty Dog or do you blame Sony? Like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say at this point because Naughty Dog is just doing what Sony wants them to do and like just be like the best it could be. But in being that best it could be, they are really like just stretching themselves out thin and like always in like the pursuit of being like the next greatest thing. So yeah, obviously this is kind of like a bad mentality for Sony to have. They shouldn't expect this for every single game. It's okay to have more niche games. It's okay to have more games that are like focused on other avenues and stuff. But if every developer is gonna be like push so hard, then you're gonna lose a lot of innovation as well. So.
Yeah, I think Sony drifting away from their smaller titles is gonna lead to their downfall.
Yeah.
Just because when you run out of Last of Us games, when you run out of Uncharted games, what are you gonna fall back on now? Because now you don't have these smaller titles like Gravity Rush, like everybody's golf to sort of look to and be like, well, maybe we could prop this up now. Because now all they have is the top tier stuff. That's all they have. They have nothing to fall back on. And I was very, very happy to go on Twitter when I saw that a tweet about, PlayStation should remaster the Sly Cooper games. Someone just randomly tweeted that. The tweet has almost 10K likes and over 2,000 retweets. So that made me very happy as a Sly Cooper fan, just because I feel like that franchise as a whole isn't really sort of noted these days. And I felt like a lot of people didn't really care about Sly Cooper. But look at me going on Twitter and Sly Cooper was trending. And I was like, wow, I wish I mentioned that in my video, because I felt like, with my own personal bias with Sly Cooper, I felt like if I mentioned that, it would have been sort of, I guess, too biased. But yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people really do like these smaller titles, despite them only being successful in Japan, despite them only having a sort of like niche audience. I think that Sony really hyper focusing on blockbuster titles, especially since with the way that they're doing it, right, is not like, oh, we'll just have Naughty Dog work on their new game. They're actually having them work on a Last of Us remake, which is a bit odd. But on top of that, having Bend Studios at first allocating them to help Naughty Dog on the other stuff, they're sort of putting all of their eggs in one basket, which is never a good thing, because now they have nothing to fall back on. They have nothing to really sort of prop themselves up when these franchises end, when these studios don't want to make any more Ghost of Tsushima's, any more God of Wars, etc. Because now it's really focused on the top tier stuff, because eventually Spider-Man's going to end, eventually God of War is going to end, etc. So yeah, I think that them being hyper focused on AAA titles is not good, and I think that Sony really needs to sort of refocus on their plan. And some people are blaming Jim Ryan for this sort of mishap, and some people are wondering why Sean, I forget his last name, but Sean was a sort of prominent figure within PlayStation. He was the guy that was presenting all of these stuff, and people found a clip of him from like one of the E3s where like, he was talking about a game that was not as well known, but he liked it because, it was innovative and he had a good time with it. But yeah, definitely something very concerning within Sony internally. And I'm not sure if they're going to turn away from this mentality, just because, every single time they drop a game now, they want it to, reach the heights of The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah, and again, that's a big mistake, because again, I think it really does hamper a lot of smaller studios within Sony if they want to do something cool or like something that's more niche. I do feel like that does stifle creativity, like I said. And if you just always focus on big blockbuster AAA games, usually they're like the same, like third-person action games, right? Like obviously they're all fantastic games, but I feel like you gotta need something a little more. That's why I'm actually surprised that Sony put so much money into Ratchet and Clank, right? Because obviously they're probably like, oh, we need like a 3D platformer, so we use Insomniac. But it still seems like kind of like they don't want to like do it. Like they would rather keep their big AAA stuff like as we know it. And there's some point where either it's gonna end or it's gonna get stale. And I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see when these big PS5 games come out. Like, are people gonna be sick of Horizon 2 when that comes out because it's too much like the first game? Or are people gonna be sick of God of War 2 because it's too much like the first game as well? We just gotta see. Yeah, but it's definitely a big problem, and hopefully Sony could see that, people want these big blockbuster AAA games, obviously, but people also want fun video games as well, like just fun creative stuff that's really niche and could bring more ideas. So yeah, hopefully Sony notices that at this point, but we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens in the future.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, them putting all of their eggs in one basket is not going to be good, and eventually it will bite them in the butt. So, and I think that clearly showed within their E3 presentations over the past couple of years when they were there, where it was like they were showing the same like 3 to 4 games from like E3 2016 or whatever, with like Spider-Man, Last of Us, God of War, like they kept showing those games over and over again, and people on Twitter, people on the internet were like, hey, when are you gonna like show something new? So I think that was like a very clear and telling sign that they needed something new. But I guess that Jim Ryan or whoever at Sony is sort of just looking at the big numbers and sort of like trying to make that with every single exclusive game that they come out, which never has to be the case.
Yeah, basically, like, I don't know. Hopefully they could like figure this out, because it doesn't. It is very concerning for like the whole studio. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And also remaster Sly Cooper. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the Falcon and Winter Soldier episode 4 and 5. We're going to be talking about full spoilers, because it is going to be very hard to not talk about spoilers when it comes to these two episodes in particular. So if you guys don't want to listen to that, you could leave, or if you don't care, continue listening. So, yeah, I think that these two episodes, especially since there are only 6 within the entire series, I think that these two have been the strongest so far, just because of the content that has happened and sort of how the story has progressed with Sam, Bucky, and John Walker. So,
yeah, I think these have been like the best episodes so far. Like, they have definitely been like full of action. Like, you get to learn more about the characters. Like, it's been like super good.
Yeah, definitely. With what's it called? Episode 4 opening up with the sort of like Wakanda thing to sort of give us an idea of why they're here, and also give us backstory as to how Bucky snapped out of his sort of trance as the Winter Soldier. So I really did like that. And then, it obviously led into the sort of hotel fight with John Walker and all of them. And, John Walker within these past 2 episodes, I think that, people hating him as a character is fine, because that's exactly what you're supposed to do. Like you're supposed to hate him as a character, but hating the actor who's playing him, I think, is a whole other story.
That's why do we always do this? Like, okay, like, remember, like, what was it? For Last of Us 2, right? When people were hating Laura Bailey because they don't like Abby? That's so dumb. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I think that, people on the internet just need to,
calm
sort of
down.
Calm down, and also separate, the art from the artist sort of thing. I think that this is the one case where I can sort of do that, because he is playing a character. He is not an actual asshole in real life, I hope. But you never know with these Hollywood people. But he was playing the character extremely well. He is, very much hateable, and I think that episode 4 really shows that he is not Captain America. He is not fit to be Captain America, especially since the climax in episode 4 where he straight up kills that dude. I thought that wasn't going to happen. I thought that one of them, Sam or Bucky, was going to come in and sort of like stop him, but I guess that they were just a little bit too late, or just didn't want to get caught in that, and he just straight up murdered that guy. And the blood that was shown on the shield is very symbolic to sort of show that this is John Walker's Captain America, if you will.
Yeah, and it does like do a good job, like, showing like more of his character, and like, he's very unstable. Like, he obviously wasn't ready to be Captain America. But also, I think it shows the resolve that Steve Rogers had as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like, if people were saying, oh, Steve Rogers would have done the same thing if like Sam died, and like, no, he probably would have not like killed this dude in cold blood. Obviously, would he be angry? Yes, of course. Like, I think everyone would be angry, but he definitely would have done the right thing in the end, because that's just who he was. It shows that John Walker, at the end of the day, I'm not gonna say he's a bad person, but a very like emotional. Well, I mean, now he's a bad person, but I'm gonna say like a very emotional person that should not have this power, obviously. So obviously he's a bad person, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. And I think what's it called? When Lamar died, I was like, ah, shit, like something's gonna happen here, and obviously like that something did happen. And seeing John Walker sort of evolve as a character because of the super soldier serum. All right, so like when he found that one vial, I was like, Zemo got most of them, but I'm like, there's gonna be one, right? Like, there has to be one, and there was. And I was like, he's most likely going to use it. And I like the way that they showed the audience that he did use it when he like bent like that pole. I was like, oh shit, like there's no way regular John Walker would have done that. So I really did like the way that they presented the sort of super soldier serum without directly showing us of him like putting it into him, I guess.
Yeah, obviously, like, we know he did it, but it was cool to see them, I guess, subtly do it, like, oh shit, he has the serum now. I think we all kind of knew at that point he was probably gonna get it, especially in that episode. It was like all the vials on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Zemo forget to step on one, and it's like, oh shit, here's evil Captain America now. But yeah, honestly, I have to like really congratulate just John Walker's acting. Like he's like a really good actor, honestly. He really portrays that this like psycho Captain America
Hmm.
who feels like he like lost everything and stuff. Like he really does feel like a threat, like very scary and stuff. And yeah, every time he's on screen, I just feel like, oh, I don't want to be around this guy. So
Yeah, this guy's kind of scary, but I think episode 4, as a whole, like it started off kind of slow just because it wanted to like build everything up to what was going to happen in the second and third half of the episode. But my favorite part of the episode, despite the super cool ending with the sort of symbolic of the sort of blood on the shield, my favorite part of the episode was definitely when Sam was talking to Carly, to sort of get an idea of where she stands and sort of empathize with her, and him being like, I am with your movement, like he understands why she's doing what she's doing. Obviously, just not the way that she's doing it. It sort of reminds me of like The Walking Dead with like Shane and Rick and sort of them two and their duality. Sort of like Shane wants to do things, in a bad way, while Rick wants to, sort of do it the good way, and that obviously showed within their characters within that show. But how Sam and Carly, that whole conversation, them getting to know each other, and sort of he almost did it, and then fucking John Walker, he obviously has to ruin everything, and she got away. But yeah,
yeah.
I definitely like that interaction that they had.
I like it also because just like with John Walker, what I was talking about with Steve Rogers. I think they did a good job with Sam, showing that he has that same like sort of like golden heart that Steve Rogers has, and I think it's showing that you don't need like super strength or whatever to be a good Captain America. You just need that like that good resolve and like that good like believe in everyone. Well, not believe in everyone, but have believe in the good in everyone like Sam does.
Hmm.
So because obviously he wants to connect with Carly because she is not her fault like that all this was happening. Obviously, she's a terrorist now, so yeah. But I always have to put a little caveat there. But I think and like she's obviously just like scared and like she wants the best for her like the refugees and stuff, which is a good goal to have, and the world just keeps screwing her over, and I think Sam knows that, and obviously we're gonna like connect in a deeper level, and then everything when they all start fighting and stuff, but I think it's a cool dynamic. It also shows that I think she still trusts Sam to a certain extent, but like obviously they gonna have to fight because their views like conflict obviously. So
Yeah, definitely. After John Walker sort of ruined everything, I'm sure Carly is at no point of return, just because now she hired the guy from like episode 1 to like sort of, I guess, kill the Falcon. That's what his main goal is. He doesn't want to be a part of her sort of rebellion revolution thing. And they are in New York City, which is kind of crazy. And I'm sure that this last episode 6, is going to be insane, and hopefully caps everything off very nicely, because I really do like the Falcon and Winter Soldier like as characters within the MCU, and I think that the show has done a really good job of sort of portraying them so far. And the talk that Sam and Bucky had within episode 5, when they're like throwing the shield around, I thought that that was a really good way to resolve, I guess, their conflict with each other and sort of how they view each other. Bucky's saying like, the shield is like the last family that he has, and when Sam gave it up, he felt lost. He had to like sort of like question himself, Sam and Steve. So I really did like that conversation that they had between the two, but at the same time, they're not like clearly, on, I guess, like in writing friends, if you will. So
yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
yeah. So
Um, but yeah, I don't know why. All right, but I guess we could talk about next episode, right?
yeah. I mean, we are on episode 5, right?
Oh, right. But yeah, basically, I do like they go into like the whole thing with Isaiah and stuff, with like the whole
Yes.
like obviously that's gonna be a sensitive topic for a lot of people, and maybe some people won't like that, I guess, because people are weird and dumb. But yeah, I think it was good things to point out, because obviously with having a black Captain America like could like make people uncomfortable for whatever reason, and maybe like America like is like, oh, they're not ready for that or whatever. But I think Sam obviously has shown that he is a perfectly good Captain America, and probably why he shows why I think he said it when he was talking to Bucky, that he didn't want to take up the shield because like, hey, I'm black, and like maybe like it won't like the Shield represents a lot more than just like Steve Rogers and stuff. But the Shield did do a lot of good as well. And I think now that they're starting to learn that, Sam's just gonna be like, screw it, I'm just gonna be Captain America now.
Mm-hmm. And that whole fight scene at the start of episode 5, I thought was really, really
oh
nice.
yeah, too. That was really good.
Yeah. That entire fight scene, I was like, yes, this is what I've been waiting for, just because I knew that this was gonna happen eventually. And obviously the whole thing with at the end of episode 5 where he just straight up kills the dude, and sort of the cinematography where like it would always go back to the blood on that shield. I was like, yes, because that is something that you cannot sort of like forget that literally just happened, because Steve Rogers would never have done something like that, even if Sam or Bucky sort of went away. I mean, literally within Captain America 1, he thought Bucky died, but that didn't happen. And seeing Sam take up the shield now after talking with Isaiah and everything like that, like I thought that the way that Sam progressed as a character within episode 5 in particular, I thought was really, really well done. Sort of, calling up on all of those favorites to like fix the boat, to sell it. And then, Sarah obviously was like, we're not selling it anymore. I kind of saw that one coming, but
yeah,
it's just, something that their family has. And getting an insight onto Sam's, I guess, life at home, I thought was obviously very key and very telling within the start of the show to begin with. But I like that we went back to it within this episode, because it does play a part into him becoming Captain America and him sort of taking up that shield after they, jack it from, John Walker, because, we can't just, run up on the guy, beat him up and take the shield like he said in like episode 1 or 2. But obviously that did happen. So
yeah, they beat the shit out.
Yeah, that was a awesome fight scene.
It was a good fight. Yeah,
I think Zemo, his conclusion, so sort of being a prisoner of Wakanda, is probably the best thing that could have happened. I 100% knew that Bucky wasn't going to cap him. Like, I'm like, this guy, he's not going to kill him, right? Like, there's no way. So, I think that him going off to Wakanda is a fitting end to his character. And I cannot wait to see what that Wakanda, I guess, outfit that Sam has is going to look like within episode 6.
Yeah, I mean, I also think this, obviously he talks about how this episode was good development for Sam. I always thought it was good development for Bucky, because, obviously him not, like, straight up shooting Zemo in the face is, like, he probably learned that, like, yeah, I probably shouldn't, like, just kill everyone, and, like, I'll just take him to Wakanda, because they probably want, him anyway. So, well, obviously, I think he goes to the raft, I think they said, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Just take him as a prisoner again. And obviously when Sam and Bucky were talking, and Sam was like, hey, you got to really fix your shit. Like, you keep having nightmares and stuff still. Like, you obviously haven't resolved your issues with, like, being the Winter Soldier. And obviously that's going to end with him telling the dude who he killed his son in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and be like, yo, I'm really sorry about that. Like, I did that. So that's probably going to be good development for Bucky as well.
Yeah, I really like that they brought that back around, because, when I saw Bucky flirting with Sarah, I was like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, please, please do not make this a thing. But yeah, I really did like, episode 5 as well, despite, the shocking ending of episode 4. And with the whole Sharon thing, I mean, I don't know what the hell she's doing. It seems really, really, really goddamn sketchy what's going on with her.
She's mad sus.
Yep, she is mad sus, and I am curious to see how that's all going to resolve within the final episode. But yeah, I really also like the sort of, I guess, montage of seeing Sam sort of mess with the shield and sort of getting used to it, because that thing is definitely something that you don't, I guess, typically use within combat. So seeing someone else try to perfect it with him, like throwing it at the trees with like the cushions on them, I thought was a very nice sort of montage.
Yeah, it was really cool to just see him, like, get used to the shield and, like, just, I guess, work out even more, because, obviously he doesn't have, all that fancy tech anymore as the Falcon, because he's just going to be Captain America now. It's going to be interesting to see how he does in a fight, because, again, he's not a super soldier. He's just a guy with Captain America's shield, which could still do a lot of damage, obviously, because that thing is, like, really strong.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really cool to just see him, like, train up and, like, be the next Captain America. And I'm really excited to see, like, what his outfit looks like as well.
Yeah, I just want to see how this is all going to end, because if it ends properly and they, stick the landing, this is definitely going to be one of my favorite MCU things ever, and definitely a lot better than WandaVision. WandaVision was good, but I think that the second half of the show and sort of everything that happened within the second part of the show was a little all over the place, and I think that it didn't stick the landing as well as I would have wanted to. Not because my theories weren't right or whatever. It just felt like that the ending of it just didn't really satisfy me, in my opinion.
Right, and I understand that. And I think it's because this show is harder to mess up, just because like I think all the Captain America stuff is right, like so well established and like pretty well built at this point that I felt like it would be hard to mess it up. But I also feel like just Sam and Bucky are good characters as well, and like I think all the situations they've been getting themselves into has been really interesting with just John Walker. Like, I mean, I think the villains are really good too. Like I think
Yes.
John Walker has been a really good villain as well. Same thing with Carly being like really relatable and stuff. So, and Sharon, this is my theory. I think Sharon's the power broker because like she's like talking to all these people. I heard she was talking to a French guy, and then the French guy came in with the weapons like at the end. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess she's probably the power broker. I don't know why she became like that. Well, she was probably pissed after the Civil War stuff, but still, that seems a little extreme. So, but yeah.
Yeah. We're just gonna have to wait and see for episode 6, because I'm sure they're gonna wrap everything up, hopefully. But is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, besides just John Walker's fake ass shield as well.
Oh yes, his fake ass shield. That shit had me dying within the mid credit scene, because I'm like, there's no way he's making a shield, right? And then he was, and I was like, I wonder how that's gonna fare when he goes to New York when everything happens. He's
gonna throw it and it's gonna like just fall. So
yeah.
But yeah, now I'm done.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening to the Travis and Damian Podcast, episode 60. Once again, and we will see you guys 2 weeks from now with another episode.
See ya.